Okay, good afternoon all. Today we have assembled to attend our first session of faculty development program for this academic year, that is 2021-22. To give a brief background about the focus of the FDP, we initially had guest speakers who focused about research, how to publish a research paper, how to write a proposal, and also we had guest speakers who talked about literature review. Now, since we have covered the initial part of research, this year we are focusing on our talks on various methodologies of research. To conduct the same, we have requested Dr. Harimohan Pillai sir to conduct 4 sessions. Each session will have presentations, assignments, and discussions. Before we begin with today's session, actually, a brief introduction about Pillai sir. Pillai sir has graduated He's done his BAj from IIT Kharagpur in 1979, when I was not born actually. And he has completed his IIT PhD, that is doctoral studies from IIT Kharagpur in 2010. Since then, he has been guiding various students and various professionals. He has also done his professional practice since 1983. He has a full-fledged office where he has done wonderful projects. He was associated with Sir J.J. College of Architecture as a reader. He was also associated with Pillai's College of Architecture as a principal. Then he was also heading MES School of Architecture, Kutipuram. He was member for undergrad Board of Studies of Council of Architecture, College of Architecture from 2004 to 2012. He has conducted various guest lectures at several schools of architecture in India since 2006. There are many guest lectures and many presentations on research which he has conducted till date. And he has his own YouTube channel also where he has displayed all the lectures in relation to research also. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of College of Architecture and hand it over to you to conduct your lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Priya ma'am. Thank you so much. And good afternoon to all of you. And this session is not a session for students. So none of you are students. This is a session for researchers, and researchers are not students. So please remember that. There's a big difference between students and researchers. What that difference is something you will know little by little as we continue this session. So you see, there is a big question mark about what exactly is research. And in order to research has been there in all fields of technology and other social sciences all over the world, including in our country. But research in architecture is far and little work in between. Not many people have actually gone into hardcore research in the field of architecture, because we consider architecture as a practical profession where you actually show your skills and your knowledge by designing and constructing buildings. So much less effort has gone into the theoretical aspects of the making of architecture. Whatever was done long ago and printed in the form of books, the same books which all of us have studied in college. We hardly see any new material by way of research coming in the form of textbooks in architectural schools. But in spite of coming into the digital world, but what is interesting is that the digital world has put the entire world of knowledge on our fingertips. So that makes us much more comfortable to access any information we want from the internet. So that again leads to the lack of interest, especially among architects, to do research work. And who actually does research work, even if somebody does research in architecture, is mostly by faculty members. So all of you sitting here are teachers. What I have noticed is that most of the research work is actually done by only teachers. There are very few architects who have actually done research work, PhD work. See, I don't like to call myself as a teacher who did PhD work. I always like to call myself as an architect who did PhD. I mean, because I was curious to know what is the implication of research in architectural practice. So that's the way I looked at the subject, not as a teacher, though I was teaching at the same time while I was doing the research work. It is important to look at architectural research as a professional practicing architect, not merely as a theoretician. Because if you look at the best of research work, what we can call, without being awarded a PhD, is done by practicing architects. Look at Corbusier's contribution. Do you think he was ever awarded a PhD for the work what he contributed to build up knowledge in architecture? Or look at Frank Lloyd Wright's work. Were they awarded PhD or did they apply for PhD anywhere? No. So most of these great architects which you see as path-breaking contribution to the knowledge of architecture were not actually part of the academic world, part of the professional world. So we as architects, we need to really look at our professional contribution and try and understand whether it is possible to do research through professional contribution. So although all of you who are attending this session are all teachers, my first advice would be to think as a professional when you think in terms of research. So with this few words of introduction, I will go into my presentation, which I will use to talk point by point about the issues related to doing research work. And today's session is only on preparations. What kind of preparations you should have if you plan to do research work. If it at the back of your mind, you have the thought that, yes, I must do research, then what kind of initial preparation is required? Certain amount of preparation is definitely required if you want to put on the coat of the researcher and start work. So I am going to talk only about preparations. I'm going to give you lots of tips. In fact, all my presentations are called tips and tricks. So they are more about shortcuts and tips, which I will give you on not complex methods, not complex methodologies, but simple tips and tricks with which you can make your life easy as a researcher, and you don't get confused about what to do next, or you don't try to run around trying to get information from other tips which I am trying to pass on to you, which will be of use to you, because I have used these very same tips to do my PhD. So I will get into the presentation mode now and talk about the steps involved in doing research. So preparations. So these preparations are for research initiatives in architecture, which again, I have qualified this title as quantitative and qualitative, because research work can be done in two different ways. So this is talking about two different ways of doing research. You must have heard this terminology before, that is quantitative ways of doing research and qualitative methods of doing research. So how research initiatives need to be taken in the field of architecture, either as quantitative or as qualitative, and what preparations required, and the tips and tricks to get into that preparatory mode. So the first thing which I requested before starting this session was to get a research diary and a blank diary with you. And now this should become part of your system. I mean, it should be there in your bag all the time if you have decided to become a researcher, because this is something very precious and you should not lose this diary, because today you are starting the whole process. So every word that you write in it becomes important and will be of some use in future. So start a research diary today and keep making notes. You don't have to keep writing down everything that I show you, but I will tell you what to write and then only you write. Otherwise, I would expect you to pay attention to whatever I am saying. Some points which I mentioned, you may write down and then act on those points, because these are tips that I'm giving you. Just act on those tips and see what benefit you derive out of acting on those tips. So first this is something to be remembered. That is, a researcher is totally under self-management. You are entirely on your own. Do not expect anybody to tell you what to do, or you don't wait for anybody to tell you. You don't wait for your institution. You don't wait for your guide. It is absolutely no point trying to wait for someone to tell you what you should do next. Or you can't complain that nobody is telling you what to do. You have enrolled for research somewhere in some institution. Somebody is assigned as a guide to you. That doesn't mean that they will kickstart the work for you. The kickstarting of the work, you only have to do it, and continuing the work also is entirely your responsibility. So it is called, is totally under self-management. If you don't do something in a day, it is your fault. Don't at all complain that You are not getting help from anyone, you are not getting help from institution, and so on. So a researcher is entirely on his or her own. So this is something to be remembered all the time. So because this is the one thing which will keep you going in your path of research. So means that when you do research, you have to take the responsibility for managing your learning. Now, how to manage your learning? No research happens without learning something first. So the moment you decide to get into the research mode, it means that you have already learned something. You have sufficient amount of knowledge in the field that you have chosen, but you need to learn a bit more to really get into the research mode. So you have to manage your learning in a rather systematic manner, which is the preparation mode. So today we are talking about preparations. So how to manage your learning from now onwards becomes more important. Till now you have learned something, you have got degrees, maybe Bachelor of Architecture, Master of Architecture, and many other certificates also. All that is in the past. Because all that when you got, you are not in the research mode. Now that you have it from today, you have to manage your learning and you are responsible for it. So how to manage this learning is what we will discuss first. So what is the initiative that you have to do? The most important initiative is penning down your thoughts or your raw thoughts. This means not computer, not laptop, not keyboard. You have to go back to the old method of having a pen and a book. So this is why I requested to come diary, a research diary, in which you will start penning down your thoughts, not rapidly, but very slowly, thoughtfully, without wasting words. In crisp language, you will write your thoughts. Now, how to go about doing this is something that we will discuss. So daily you must write something on what it is that you want to research about and your own thoughts. Keep writing on a day-to-day basis. It will be a good idea if you put the date also, so that you will remember the sequence of writing of your thoughts. And the next step is, while writing your thoughts, you should also find out, think about your thoughts. This means that if you have an idea, you have a thought, you have to also get into conversation with people about that particular thought. Because your thought may be very profound. It may be a profound idea, or it could even be a stupid idea. You may be thinking of something, it could be very stupid also. How do you know that? Who will tell you that it is a stupid idea? Or who will tell you that it is a wonderful idea, or this idea has got some scope? You will get this information only if you share your thoughts with your friends, your peers, your seniors, and so on. So first step is to write down your thoughts. Next step is to find out what others think about your thoughts. So how to find out how others think about your thoughts? So this is which you start your research work. Then comes, can you just go with the flow of the thoughts which are coming? Not really, because you will get hundreds of thoughts. Not that everything is useful for the research that you want to do. So probably the first thing that you should do is ask questions. You write down questions for which you don't answer. Questions related to your discipline or your field. Whatever, if you are an architect or any other discipline, or in architecture also, if you are involved in certain particular aspect of work, maybe sustainable architecture or building construction methodologies or representation techniques, anything, ask yourself 10 questions related to discipline for which you don't have answer. You are confused about certain things. So write down, pen down those questions in your diary. Why this? Why that? What about this? Why not this? Like that. So try to write 10 questions. 10 is just a number. You may write 2 or 3 also, but when you write 10 questions, you feel that there are so many unanswered questions in your mind. If you have only 1 or 2 questions, that is not enough sufficient to get into the mode of a researcher. A researcher should have many unanswered questions in his mind, because all these unanswered questions may be related to one another in a roundabout way also. You should have many questions to ask for which you don't have answers. So as a research initiative, pen down least about 10 questions for which you don't have answers. Having done this much, so this is the beginning of research work. 3 stages of research work. You can have many stages, but I am not talking about the complicated stages which are generally mentioned. Research methodology. Many stages are mentioned. I am just converting into a layman's terminology. Any research work anybody does in whichever field, engineering, medicine, social sciences, architecture, anything, there are 3 broad layman type of stages. One is called before doing the research, during the research, and other. So today we are going to talk about before, only about before. And whatever I speak in this are my opinion, my experiences. Okay, let us look at what is before. Now, this is a question you have to ask, and I want to now write answer. The question I am asking is, are you articulate? So, write a frank answer to yourself. Are you articulate? Have you ever presented a paper before a scholarly audience? When I say scholarly audience, it means people who are who apparently have more knowledge than you. So, right? Are you articulate? Yes or no? Have you presented any paper? If you have presented a paper before or number of papers, please from memory or whatever, write the number of times you have presented paper or topics, titles of the paper, etc. Please write down. What language is it that you find most comfortable to speak your mind in? Please write the number of languages you are very good at speaking or writing. So please write down, because it is not necessary that you are doing research is a language. Research happens in a language of your mind, the language of comprehension, of understanding. So whatever language you use, if you convey it, if the other person who understands that language understands what you are trying to convey, it means that you have passed on your knowledge to the other. It could be Marathi, it could be Hindi, it could be Malayalam, it doesn't matter. Because the reason is that architecture is not English language. Architecture is a universal language. Built form is a universal language. Any human being, he or she will understand the built form. He will understand what is the use of spaces, and he will be attracted. He or she will be attracted to use of spaces, aesthetic spaces. There is no language. It's not Malayalam, Hindi, English, or Marathi. So when you express something in an articulate manner, the knowledge about architecture that you have, what language are you most comfortable in? This also means that you not necessary that you need to be excellent in English to research work. It could be, you could do it in Marathi also. You could do it in English, in Hindi, Marathi, Malayalam, any language. Now, to system is also encouraging use of our Indian local languages to do higher education and research, etc. So you are articulate in how many languages? How best can you speak your mind? Sometimes you get stuck while speaking English, but you know what you want to say. And if you are allowed to switch over into your mother tongue, sometimes you express it much better. So please write the type of language you are articulating. So how many languages you can express yourself with clarity in speech and writing as well. Speech and writing. This is something which you should know, and you should take the maximum advantage of the number of languages you know in your research work. Okay, so the next is how many times. Now this is very important. You have to answer this question. How many times have you stood up and asked questions in a scholarly gathering? I'm sure you must have attended seminars, workshops, etc. And many a times we go and attend, sit through it, collect all the printed materials, listen to it, collect all available information. You may or may not present a paper. You may simply attend as a member in the audience, but you never ask a question. You have, but you are shy to ask. But that is a trait which is desirable in a researcher. You have to ask questions. How many times till now have you stood up and asked questions in a scholarly gathering without feeling embarrassed, without feeling, you have a question, so you want the answer. So you ask questions. How many times have you done it? And if you remember what question, where you have asked, that will be very useful. So please write that in your research diary. Another thing is, do you remember those questions? You must write down those questions. So Next is, did you get satisfactory answers? Anytime you have asked a question in a scholarly audience, did you get an answer which was satisfactory? Did the speaker or whoever was presenting or the organizers, were they able to give you a satisfactory answer, or did you get more than the answer that you desired from the person who was speaking or from the organizers conducting that particular session, scholarly session? So this is important. This is one way you build your confidence as a researcher. Why this is important is, remember, this is extremely important for a stage called after research. What happens after you become a research scholar, or rather you get your PhD? Do you know, many people simply get a PhD and then that's it. They sit on it. They don't do anything after that. But the reality of the most important part of doing a research and getting a PhD is what you are able to do after you get your PhD. Not what that you have got a PhD, but what all you are able to do after you get your PhD. So one of the most important thing that would happen or must happen once you have got your doctoral degree is that you should be very, very articulate in anybody asks you a question on the spur of the moment, you should be able to answer the question. So you will be able to answer question only if you know how to ask questions. So whenever you attend a scholarly gathering, you should ask questions. You should remember these questions, and you should have this kind of collection of your own questions which got satisfactory answers, which did not get satisfactory answers, because now we are getting into some more serious stuff. Do you have a substantial library of books and journals in your discipline? Do you have it? This is a question. When I say, do you have it, not the college library, but your own personal collection at your home, in your office? How many books you have on architecture? If you are doing work in architecture, your own books and journals on architecture. Please prepare a list of titles and author that you physically own. If you have not prepared till now, it is time you prepared it. It is a must if you want to become a researcher. So I would like to see a list of books you personally, you don't feel shy about it. You may not have any book, or you may have only just 2 or 3 books. It doesn't matter. Some may have 10, 20, 30, 40, 10, 5, 6, whatever. How many personal collection titles with author you physically own, you have in the field of architecture? This is a very important question, because 2 things it tells. One is that you have in your profession. 2, whether what you have is sufficient to call yourself a researcher, or desire to get into the research mode, whether it is sufficient. Ownership of such documents is extremely important if you want to do research. Okay, so this is something which I would like to see from all of you individually, individual collection of titles and authors, that as a collection of books that you have. All right, so you see this image here. Supposing you have a lot of books. There are people who have a lot of books at home, but look at the qualities. Books which are read. Can you do something like this? If you have a lot of books at home, put some color codes outside the book, sticker saying that this book I have read, this book I intend to read, this book I half read, this book I have intended to read. I am saying, or when I have more time to read, I will never read this book. I'll purely for show I have put this book in the shelf, not for reading. But I can't remember anything about it. And there are books which you wish you had not read also. A very interesting questionnaire. If you have a lot of books at home, please categorize your books like this, or arrange them in the shelf according to this. Things which you have read from first page to the last page, put them there. And there are this kind of 9 categories of books which you perhaps own, which is very interesting way of looking at the collection of books that you have, because it is there with everywhere. I have all of these varieties at home. I mean, with me, I have a huge collection of books. I have books which I wish I had not read, but I don't feel like throwing it because it's a book. I have few books which are purely for show. I don't even open them. So all these categories already exist in my. When I say books, not necessarily just pure textbook. It could be journals, magazines, architecture, any related to architecture or your discipline. Any collection, books, journals, magazines, booklets, leaflets, textbooks, whatever. So now we are entering into what is research. Till now, we're talking about fundamentals of the mode, getting into the mode of research. But now we will talk about, so in the universe of knowledge, the subject which you plan to do research is your domain. It's called the knowledge domain. I mean, in architecture, you're doing research in one particular aspect in the huge universe called architecture as a knowledge domain. So in this universe of knowledge, the subject which you plan to do research is actually your domain. So there is something called knowledge domain, which is architecture, but there is one particular part in which you are going to do research. It is your domain, and that domain is also universe all by itself. I hope it is clear to you. For example, you may do, say, research work in the role of freehand sketching in architecture. Now, this is research work, possible research. So the domain called freehand sketching is a universe by itself. You will realize it when you start the research. So it becomes your own universe into which you are going to explore by doing research. So this is the difference between the bigger universe and your own personal domain as a universe, which you identify in the important larger universe of architecture. Now within this domain also, now look at it. So within this domain, you have to narrow down to one singular aspect, which is an issue of your subject, your interest, in which you want to do research. Now, you can't simply start doing research in one particular aspect. I said, for example, role of sketching in architecture. You can't simply do it, research into it just because, yeah, it has a bright idea stuck in your mind that sketching, freehand sketching in architecture can be a domain of PhD work. But you have to verify that nobody has done it before. Now, this is very important. Now, this is where the real hard work starts. You have to establish first that the idea that you have has not been used up by some. How do you establish this, that nobody has done this before? Or even if somebody has done this before, how different your work is going to be compared to the work of that person? You may discover that, yes, free sketching's role in architectural representation has been done by so many people. So you have to establish this, that no one has done this before, whatever idea you are getting. So this is the singular aspect or the issue of your own, which you have to arrive at. That I'm just trying to figure out, do you have questions to ask? I mentioned this earlier. You have questions to ask.
It's just coming up and asking.
Even I may not have answers to your question, but it is important that you have questions to ask.
Sir, there was a question that you said there needs to be no restriction about language while you do research.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
sketches and ways of illustration be a language for doing research?
Illustrations.
Yeah, can doing sketches and ways of illustrations be a language for doing your research?
Now you have given one more language dimension of language. I spoke about Hindi, English, Marathi. You are saying illustration. Yes, why not? Because yes, why not? Illustration, again, illustration you have mentioned not only as a language, it is a domain by itself, correct? And illustration can be categorized. One I mentioned is freehand sketching. It is some kind of illustration, but cartoons are also illustration. Measured drawings are also illustration. Illustration means visual language, correct?
Yes.
So wonderful. Why not? Of course, it is a language. It is perhaps a more universal language compared to, say, Marathi, Hindi, or which is a universe by itself, but known only to few people. But illustration's power is something which is fascinating, which anybody will understand with anybody who looks at the world with clarity and when he or she sees an illustration. So it's a good, definitely it is possible. It's a language. There are some wonderful cartoonists Leo Artist. Have you heard of Leo Artist?
Yes, yes.
You've seen the work, correct? I don't know who that person is, but does fascinating illustrations on architecture. I'm a great fan of that. I don't know who the person is, but I they love to see that person's updates, and so you have pointed out a very good example of a language. Yes, definitely. Anybody else?
Good morning,
Yes, sir.
sir. My question is that with reference to the slide which you showed about the collection of books. So many of us,
Yes.
we have the habit to refer to the books at various library locations. So we might not have a
Yes.
personal copy. So in that case, how
Yes.
is it possible to tag it or to systematize that habit of
No,
reading?
good question. But what I have asked is, what is your personal collection? I'm not talking about libraries. I'm talking about your personal collection. You look at a researcher. Why I'm saying this is, why I said this is, if you don't have a personal collection, and if you want to become a researcher, it is time to start a personal collection. Very simple. If you're planning to do research, today you have decided to become a researcher, start collecting books. Personal collection. It is important because you look at the shelf of any researcher, any topic, any subject expert. You go to any professor who is doing research, to his cabin, or you go to their house. In fact, not the institutional cabin full of books, but they will be borrowed books from here and there. But the best way to know a researcher's mind is to see the personal collection of the books. That shows I'll give you wonderful questions, sir, you have asked. The reason I give you is, I had this habit. I don't know how many of the day I started earning first. That is my first earning was when I went for professional practice as a student in my fourth year, final year, way back in 1978. From that day onwards, 10% of my income I have been spending on books. Very difficult. You see, 10% maximum, not. So if you are earning 1,000 rupees, spending 100, we spend 200-300 rupees just on eating outside and vada pav, pav bhaji and so on, correct? But do we set aside 10% of your income every month blindly for buying books? So if a book is expensive, I would just collect for 5 months, see whatever my income is, 10% of that, set it aside and go and buy that book because I want that book. So as a researcher, you need to have, see behind me, you see a collection. This is only 1/8 of my collection. What you see behind me, this is my office, my space is full of books. And all these books I have collected since the last 40-45 years. And you don't feel like giving because they are just 10% of your income till now. And can you imagine, you are 10 years in profession, 20 years in profession, 30 years in profession, how much knowledge you can acquire. Not to just to see many of these books even I have not read. I like the books, so I bought. I have not read full. I have said, it happens. I give it to somebody to use, some student to use, and so on. But that passion to collect books has to be inherent if you want to be a researcher. Otherwise, you'll be totally dependent on others. Libraries, if a library is closed, now you can't do anything because you can't get a book. But if you have a collection of books which you have not even read, then everything is. Look at this lockdown. Libraries are locked down. But I haven't stepped out of my house, but still I am happy with all the books that I have here. Correct? So as a researcher, you have asked a wonderful question. Why I said books, personal books, is that if you don't have, it is time you started. At least spending 10% of your income on buying books. Most important book that you think you need, definitely need for doing research or starting research. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Good question, sir. Good question. So we were narrowing down up to a singular aspect or issue of your subject. You narrow down to one topic in which you really want to do a lot of study and make it into a universe by itself. So the idea that you narrow down to a topic means that topic you will study so much that it will end up as a universe. I hope you understand that. What I mean is, so how it happens is like this. I have divided here. There are 2 columns here. One domain, the other is new domain. The original domain is the domain in which you have been studying, you have been looking, and you have been collecting information. So it's already full of information, analyzed, evaluated, application, comprehension, everything is there. But the new domain you create will be created by evaluating. We will create a new domain by evaluating and synthesizing information collected from the original domain. So that is the role of a researcher. There is a lot of knowledge available with people and primary source, secondary source. So you have to create a new domain. The role of a researcher is to create a new domain of a particular aspect, a singular aspect in which nobody has done work before. And by creating, evaluating, analyzing, applying, understanding, and remembering, and synthesizing the whole information that you collect in that particular singular aspect, you create a new domain. This is a very graphic way of showing you have a big domain around you, and out of that you are extracting information, analyzing and synthesizing, and creating a new domain which can over a period of time become a universe all by itself for somebody else to find something to do research. When you create a new domain, that can become a universe for another person to do research. This is how research keeps on happening all over the world in all disciplines. If you look at any particular aspect of research, say, let us say in science, look at how the entire field of organic chemistry evolved. If you look at the history of science and technology, you see, can you imagine? I'm sure all of you have heard about the story of how Kekulé, the scientist called Kekulé, discovered the structure of benzene. Anyone can answer this? Have you heard that story?
He saw in dreams some snakes
Yes.
in hexagonal configuration, something like this.
So he was worried. He was thinking about it for several days. When he went off to sleep, he dreamt that one snake is eating another snake.
Yes.
And 6 such snakes are eating one another. So he created the structure C6H6. C6H6 is the structure of benzene, and it looks like a hexagon. So this is just one example. So in everywhere, for example, the apple falling on Newton's head and then discovery of gravity. With that, how much ahead we have come by way of developing newer. That was a singular aspect for Newton. That was a singular aspect for in the original domain of science. For Kekulé, it was a singular aspect in the original domain of, let us say, chemistry. But they developed a new domain. When the new domain of benzene developed, millions and thousands of different organic molecules were molecular structures were developed. When the new domain of Newton developed, see how many new applications evolved out of that. So that is called singular aspect, a new domain, and creating newer universe through research. So this happens before in it. All this kind of, in some cases we say inspired. So we say Newton was inspired, Kekulé was inspired. See, it is that inspiration moment in research when a new domain comes. It can happen suddenly, an inspired moment, because you have done this continuous evaluation, synthesis, analysis, application, comprehension and of the knowledge, which is the original domain. So what is that you don't get this overnight. So that is why the collection of books are necessary, continuous writing is necessary, continuous evaluation, thinking is necessary. And a moment will come when you will get that sudden inspiration, sudden thought, sudden bright idea, which will create a new domain. Exactly like what happened to Edison's bulb creation, or Newton's work, or any researcher's work. So this is something to be understood. The singular aspect. So now we put this down to in a chart. Whatever we discussed till now, we are trying to put down in a very simple chart. And what I have written here is might put you off, many of you, that this domain narrowing down to this kind of inspiring moment take minimum 2 years, literally. For 2 years at least, you have to keep reading, keep writing, keep wondering, get frustrated that you are not. It will not happen at least 2 years. It will take at least 2 years to narrow down to that particular moment of inspiration of what actually is. So you just say, I'm going to do PhD in this. It is just impossible. You can't, because you need to do preparation for 2 years in a very, very, very totally devoted manner. That is what all researchers do, hardcore researchers do. Immerse yourself. You see, and it is that 2 years can reduce if you are working day and night. You are worried. You are on tenterhooks on finding something. For example, look at COVID. It's a classic example. You must do an internet search on how to develop a vaccine. How many people have worked day and night, not alone singularly, but collectively all over the world, because the pandemic struck us. You know, we don't tend to be, we are just worried that I'm not getting vaccine, and we are running around trying to get a vaccine. But look at all those researchers working day and night trying to figure out what can be a vaccine. And how many vaccines have come? Not many. The world over, all the countries, all the scientists, all the microbiologists working day and night have not created many number of vaccines. Narrowing down to that topic, they have been working day and night in the last 1.5 years. But if you collectively look at, see, not just one person, but hundreds of scientists, if you add up the time spent by each and every scientist, it will run into several years of work actually. It is not even 2 years now, but if you just add up the time spent, thought processes spent, readings done, experiments done by all these scientists who are developing the vaccine for COVID, it will run into many, many years. So narrowing down to a topic in your domain takes time. If you're doing at least generally about 2 years, and this is how the narrowing down happens. If you look at this figure, possible topics. So let us look at COVID situation. There are all possible configurations of vaccine which are possible. Then you assign a topic. Let us explore this. Let us explore that. So that is how topic narrowed down by initial exploration. So you have Covaxin, you have Covishield, so many varieties, different ways of understanding the COVID, the virus, and how to penetrate the virus's internal molecular structure so that you can trap the virus. So that is, I'm just giving you an example as an example to topic to narrow down to the final research question, how to answer the research question in this case. See the research question also, when you narrow down, I'm just continuously trying to give you example of COVID. When you narrow down to the research question, the question comes is, will it work on old people, or will it work on young people? Will it work on men? Will it work on women? Will it work on child? Or will it universally work on all humans, or it will work only on Americans? Now, this was not known. They were trying to find out how to save a human being. Now, in the process, they have found that there are so many variants which are happening. In India, there is one variant. In China, there is another variant. US, there is another variant. Anthropological differences. So look at the huge universe of research possibility this one little virus has created in the field of microbiology. So that's fine. So similarly, in your own field, you have to really work hard, work with diligence and a lot of attention to narrow down to the final topic, which will have answers to their research questions. Topic narrowed to research questions and finding answers to those research questions. So this has to happen for at least about 2 years in the initial stages, the moment you start thinking in terms about research. So this first 2 years of your research must be spent in reading and collecting books and journals related to your domain. So many of you are worried about this question. Collect books, your own personal books, collect books from library, keep reading. But there are some core books which you must have with you, that you have to decide which is one book which you want to own it, because that is what is going to give you the inspiration. It's the Bible for your research work. Everyone has one Bible book in your discipline, which is the core book, which you need to have it with you. You can't get it every time from the library. So many people, what they do is, that book you want, you can't afford to buy it, it's too expensive, you go and photocopy it and bind it and keep it. So that is also one way of collecting books. You don't have to buy books. You can collect books from library. you don't return it to the library, but returning it, you photocopy the book, bind it so that at least you own that book. So this is what I mean by your collection of books, not necessarily original books, which perhaps are very expensive. You can even scan the books, make PDF and keep with you. So all these possibilities have happened now with technology available, scanning books and keeping them as your personal collection. It was not there 20 years ago. So you have to really photocopy. Before photocopying, nothing was there. You have to only buy books, make notes. You have to write them down and keep as your personal collection. So this is first 2 years at least you should have to spend reading and collecting books and journals related to your domain. So now I will come about how to read books. Are you ready to for this? This is very simple, but it may be interesting to note that there is a way you read books. All the books that you collect, whatever books you get from library. If you are a researcher, if you are not a researcher, it is okay. You can read whichever way you want. You can open the book anywhere and read, or so on that. Which you can't do with a novel or a mystery thriller. You can't open a novel anywhere and start reading. You read from the page 1 to the last page. That is not the case with books related to research. Actually, you can open any chapter and read, or you can look at the list of chapters in the beginning of the book or the index and identify that domain which you actually want to read, and you can read that chapter. So when you do research, you can be very intelligent in reading books. You have to do it very intelligently. Not necessary that you get a book, you read the title, the first page, second page, author's name, and go on like that. Not necessary. That is not the way to read books by a researcher. You identify which are the most important chapters or index or pages which are there for you to read them first. And but then there are certain methods, universal methods, which you can follow. One is each book must be read 3 times. Now, why 3 times? I don't know. I like this idea of reading a book 3 times. I'll tell you why. And 3 times doesn't mean that you read once, or again you read immediately, and again you read immediately. That doesn't make sense. Once you read, put the book aside. Read that book after some time. Provided it is your personal book, you can easily afford to put it in shelf. That is what I mean by you have some books which you have never read, or you have read half and kept it in the shelf because it is your personal book. But with library books, you can't do it. You have to read it quickly, return the book, then again get the book sometime later because you want to get more information. You read it again, and so on. But a good book which you need desperately, which has got a lot of information related to the research, your research domain, you must read 3 times at least, with sufficient gap between each reading. And what you should do in those reading? In those reading, each time you read, you must highlight passages and sentences that appeal to you in different color each time. Now, why different color each time? When you take a book, you can experiment this from now. From today, you can experiment after this session. Take a book which you own. The book which you own is yours. So it doesn't matter if you start coloring them, highlighting them in different colors. It doesn't matter. But you can't do it to library books. So you can start with your own personal books. First read, you underline certain sentences, certain passages which you like, which you find that are very useful for the research work in, say, one color. Say, start with the red color. So you know that the red lined passages or statements in the book are what attracted you when you read it the first time. So anytime you open the book, you know, okay, oh, this is my first reading. These things I was attracted to this when I read it for the first time because it is in red. Second time when you read, maybe after a year or so, you underline them in green color or blue color, whatever. So 3 different colors for 3 different reading, and you only know your own color coding. So anytime in future when you open the book, you know that this was your first reading, this was your second reading, and this was your third reading. Now there is a significance to these 3 different reading events. What are the significance? First thing is that when you finish reading a book, write down the portions highlighted by you into your research journal or diary. That means first time you are reading, You like certain things, you have underlined them in red because that is first reading. Don't just underline them and leave the book aside. You copy those statements into your research diary. You should copy them. Now, this is what I mean by saying at least 2 years to get into the research mode. If you are not doing this, believe me, it is not very easy to become a researcher. You read a book, you underline, after underlining, copy them into your research diary or maintain a book into which you are copying only those sentences. Now look at it like this. One book you have taken, but in the process of reading, you found only about 10 or 20 sentences or 5 or 6 passages only which are worth of any value to you. So you are highlighting them and then copying them into your research diary. Then you don't need that book. That book is of no use because you have got the essence that is useful for you. So when you are doing this, every time you read and copy into your research, don't forget to do the bibliographical reference with the standard international format for each highlight that you have taken. Now all this goes simultaneously. So you don't simply read, highlight and throw the book. First time you have read, write it down. So this is where the real research work happens, because many a times you keep reading, you write it down, but you forgot which book you got, you forget which page you saw this, and then you are not able to refer to that when the time comes for you to do your final research paper. Because it is extremely important when you do your final research work in a book form that you give references according to the international format for everything that you have read and you are quoting. If you don't do it, your work will not be accepted. So right from the beginning, when you do reading, do bibliographical reference in the standard international format for each highlight that you have taken down from the book into your research diary. So you don't need that book at all if you have finished reading 3 times and you have found only 4 sentences in the whole book. Okay, you may find only 3 or 4 sentences. Now that is why reading a book carefully becomes important. Now here, let me also say one thing. There is something called rapid reading. Rapid reading means that is also an art. I don't know how many of you are good at it. You don't read sentence by sentence, but you scan the book, and as you read, this is a quality in some people who do a lot of reading, that they know how to scan through books and find the right material. I mean, this quality is there in people who read a lot. They know by reading, they'll very quickly, some people finish reading a book very fast and they know the entire book, not by heart, but they know the content of the book because they are very good at rapid reading. This is also quality. I don't know how many of you have this quality. If you have this quality, wonderful, because you will be able to read and get essence out of these books. So believe me, this is a very important technique of reading, highlighting, making notes, and finding the essence of each book. And once you get the essence of a book, you don't need that book at all, whether it is your personal collection or whether it is from. So any questions here? Anybody want to ask?
So I have one question, rather two. So am I audible, sir?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So you said that we need to read books, and then what I want to know is, as a research scholar, when you're reading book, how do you choose those books? Because many times the books which we read are not necessary, are generated out of the empirical research. Okay, they might be the subjective feelings of the authors, right? So they may be misleading also. So that is the first one. Second is that reading is one thing, and interpreting what you have read is another thing. Okay, so if you can highlight, you can also tell us how do you interpret that. Okay,
so the first question. That's a good question. That how do you know what is useful? And so how do you know? It may be a thick book, it may be a big book, and you are worried. You look at the size of the book and how is it useful, and you feel that I wasted 5 days just going through the book and I didn't find anything interesting. So for researchers, there is a method to read a book. You must first look at the index, chapters and index. The chapters first. Look at the chapters, and if there are chapter summaries are there, if in that book, just read only the summaries of chapters or chapters. And then go to the last page and look at the index. Look at the word index. reference index, word index, and see if there are phrases and terms, etc., which are useful to you in the book. So don't read the book. Read the chapter and chapter summaries, and look at the word index, in the important word index, and maybe highlight only them there. Okay, this page I have to read. You will understand that. The moment you read the chapter and chapter summaries, you will know, okay, I have to read only the 5th chapter here in this book. And you look at the index of words. Okay, there are certain words which are important for my, say, sustainability. So you are finding only in 5 places where the sustainability aspect is mentioned in the entire book. So you highlight that. Just look at that and shut the book. That's it. So this is the answer to your first question. Am I clear, madam? So you don't have to read. I hope it is clear. So you don't have to read the whole book. Don't get worried that's a big book. And so look at only the chapter contents and chapter summary and the index, and you will be able to. That is the first part. Yeah. Yeah.
So the question was not that whether I'm going to get the relevant, data, or maybe relevant area of my own research into the book. As you said that, okay, I want to know about sustainability and whether that is covered. My question is also about the authenticity of the book.
Authenticity. No.
Because
authenticity of the book.
Good.
That's a good
of information rather than it is based on the empirical research. So that is what I wanted to ask.
There are 2 ways of looking at the authenticity. One is look at how much references that person has in his book or her book. That shows the reading of that person also. You see, when a scholar writes a book, a scholar must give references, bibliography. So look at the bibliography and references which that scholar has put in the book. So it is not random, because he or she has done enough reading to come to those conclusions. So definitely there is authenticity, because that person has sifted. You cannot fake this. You cannot fake this by giving a lot of bibliography and a lot of references. You can't fake that. In knowledge, it is impossible to fake knowledge by just simply giving bibliography and references, because anybody who takes the book will refer it, cross-refer. That if the author says that my thought is based on this person's this observation, so you can always cross-check whether that. So that is where you get a lot of information by looking at the author references and other bibliographic references in a book. So that establishes the authenticity of this particular author also. If there is no references, no other thing in a book, then definitely this fellow is perhaps simply writing his mind. We don't know whether there is authenticity, correct?
True.
So yeah, so that is one way. Okay. And your second question was, I forgot what you had asked for that second.
Yes, sir. I asked about interpreting. How do you interpret what you have read?
Yes. Now, interpreting what you have read, thread to interpretation depends entirely on your original questions that you have asked. You know, if you are reading randomly without any objective for reading, then interpretation also can be random. But right now in the beginning of this presentation, I said, ask yourself 10 questions, correct? You have to ask yourself 10 questions, research questions. So if you have those 10 questions, you keep those 10 questions in front of you when you do any reading. So relevance, you will know that, okay, this part is relevant to at least one of those questions which I have asked. If nothing is relevant, then why skip all that? There's no relevance to the questions that you are asking. So this is why in the beginning of this preparation mode of research, I said, ask yourself 10 questions for which you don't have answer. So you are looking for those answers as interpretations in some books, correct? You get my point?
Yeah,
what are you interpreting? Yeah, so it's simple. So
we are also looking at, what these people have to say about what we are trying to find.
Yes. So if you have your questions ready with you, with reference to those questions, you're looking for interpretations to those questions only, nothing else. So your questions, research questions, for which you don't have any answer, should be ready with you whenever you are reading a book. So that should be there with. That's why I asked you to write down 10 questions as the first thing in your research diary today. If you have not done it, maybe later today you write questions and use those questions as your perpetual questions for which you are seeking answer in the form of research. You get my point?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
So-
thank you so much.
have done reading of a book in the format or the methodology which I have suggested in that manner, I believe that you don't need that book again. If you have done that reading, you have made notes, you have referred, collected information, then you may not need that book ever again. You can put aside that book, put a color code on it saying that I don't need it, or put cross or something, so that you don't ever pick up that. So this is called systematic and proper reading of books. Now, reading can be from books, from journals, magazines, internet sources. These are all new reading stuff today. Internet sources are reading. People say that internet is useless, but not true really. Internet is becoming more and more authentic today. But whatever may be the source, what is important is to write down your highlighted thoughts. Simply copying what others have written is not of use, but your thoughts based on what you have highlighted in your research journal. So that is what is important for your own research outcome. Copying what somebody has said or written is the first step, but by reading that again, you write in your own way that thought. That is your research contribution. That is building up your research contribution. For example, you have read a passage which you like, so you write down that passage in your research journal. Keep reading that passage, that book again and again, and develop your own thought processes based on that passage, and write down in your own language what you feel about that thought process. Then it becomes your own contribution into the knowledge domain. So you should do it. That's why you should always keep a research journal. Referencing. Now, this is one particular way of referencing I'm showing you. You have to hunt for this is the international way of referencing: author, year of publication, title, subtitle, edition, publisher, and your edition which will become part of your research work is called particular page, where you have seen that reference. The first part is the international method, but your addition will be particular page, PP, particular page which you are referring to in this particular book, okay? So this is called practices by a researcher, referencing the source. So for example, in this book on page 35, paragraph number 2 is what you are talking about. So that is your addition in the tail end of the referencing. So this is how you will mention in all your research paper or in your books that you do. So you will know this by looking at other people's papers, how to do researching. This you should start right from beginning when you are doing some reading. First write the author's name, then give the year of publication, then give the title of the book. It's not the other way around. You don't write the title of the book first. Author, year of publication, title, subtitle, edition number, and the publisher, followed by your own reference to a particular page or passage in the book. Now, this is about book reading. Now, till about 20 years back or in the last millennium, book reading was the only source of collecting information for a researcher. But now things have changed. You can supplement all this information through documentaries and movies also. Today you can do it because you are net enabled, you have connections, you have so many documentaries on the internet on the domain that you are doing research on. So watching documentaries, movies, and getting information from them and referring to that particular source can also be supplemental information for your research work. So you have to also, there are so many BBC documentaries on Netflix, on Prime Video. So many documentaries related to your domain will help you understand. Having done so much, now this is the initial stage work. Do not go for the interview mode to do this much. So this is where I said it will take at least 2 years to do all this. While you are reading, while you are writing, while you are watching documentaries and movies, look for names of people who you may want to meet. Now, many people may not be in this world anymore, but there are many people who are still alive who have done research in the domain in which you are doing research. If possible, if they are in your town, if they are in the town in any of the cities in your country, to meet, personally meeting and talking to them is of great importance, of great relevance to you, help to you as a researcher. So look for names of people whom you may want to meet to talk about your interest in the domain. Now, this is also very important. There are many experts. Now, it is at this juncture that the question of language comes into use, because you may find some people who do not know how to communicate in English. They may communicate in some other language, but they are actually researchers in your particular domain. Supposing you are doing research work in traditional architecture, and the traditional architecture happens to be of Gujarat or let us say Bengal, and you go and find a person who doesn't know Bengal but knows the local language, can give you a lot of information about the traditional architecture of that place. So that is where the language becomes very important, and not only the language of that person with whom you are talking, but also recording it. When you meet, you should be fully prepared with questions to ask and record the conversation. You don't know whom you are meeting, what kind of person you are meeting, what is the information that person has, what is the language that person is going to use. So you may not understand that language. You ask a question, the person understands your question, and then he or she talks in Bengali, very animatedly. He or she can express herself only in Bengali and Gujarati, a language which you don't understand. But the knowledge which the person is sharing is useful to you, you know it. So how do you collect that language? You can't sit and write all that. Very simple. Today you can easily record using your mobile phone or a recorder, whatever he or she says. Say thank you. Partly you will understand, many things you don't understand, but that recorded audio or video becomes very useful when you come back to your base camp and listen to it again, or get help from a person who knows that language to listen and translate it for you, for your benefit. So these are all new modes, new mediums for collecting information. So which you must explore. Very useful, especially in the field of architecture. These new mediums of video, audio are extremely useful for collecting information. So now let us come to, we are all more or less finished with the mode. Now let us look at the structuring of thesis work, research work. Don't decide in advance what is the nature of your research work going to be. Is it going to be quantitative or qualitative? You will decide it later. You look at only your domain. How you're going to, you don't decide now in the before phase. That you will slowly arrive at a later stage, during the research phase. Okay. In the beginning, don't decide that you are going to do an experimental research or a qualitative research. Don't decide on that. Your readings will lead you to decide that. The moment you do reading, the moment you do interviews, the moment you visit places, over a period of time, you will be able to decide whether your research work is going to be qualitative or whether your research is going to be quantitative, or whether it be a mixed mode of nature of research. It will happen only over a period of time. Don't decide that in advance. This is an advice which I like to give all of you. So now comes to some of the interesting tips. You may feel surprised. Avoid discussions about the specificity of your topic with anyone. Now this is you may ask why I should avoid talking. In the beginning I said discuss with people what your research is. Now I am saying avoid discussion. I'm saying the exact opposite. But I am saying avoid discussion about specificity of your topic. Don't talk to anyone about what exactly you are doing research on. Talk only about the domain. Why I'm saying this is, it is very easy to give away your ideas to somebody else. If he or she is smart enough, they will grab that idea and go and finish the research work much before you are even able to collect information. So what it happens? It's a very competitive world. The world of research is also highly competitive. If you give away everything that you are talking about, you are researching about, 5% will find that they have finished their research before you even started it. So it can happen. So avoid discussion about the specificity of your topic with anyone, even with your closest best friend. Talk about the domain, not really what you are really trying to arrive at. Don't talk about the specific aspects of your research. Discuss with others only the domain of your research. Whenever you have discussions among your friends, colleagues, other researchers, talk about the larger domain. You say, I am doing research in traditional architecture. Okay. But what exactly in traditional architecture? That I don't know. You may know, but I don't know. I'm still searching. You may have already arrived at, but you don't talk about it. Because by discussing the bigger, larger domain in many forums, you get essence out of it, which is related to actual specific domain that you are working on. So this is where discuss only the domain of your research work. Listen with attention when anyone has to say anything about your domain. कान खड़े होने चाहिए आपके. Whenever you are in a forum or in your, you hear suddenly somebody talking about traditional architecture, which is your domain, or suddenly somebody is talking about energy intensive design issues or sustainability and energy. आपके कान खड़े होने चाहिए कि यहाँ पे topics of my interest discussion is going on, and you should join such crowd in any conference or any gathering. So you should listen with attention when anyone has to say anything about your domain and see if you can get something out of that. And every seminar or conference, you must attend as a silent observer. If you are not participating, if you are not presenting paper, attend as a silent observer on your domain. In fact, all your attending of seminars should start like this. You start attending seminars as a silent observer a couple of times. Don't present paper, only listen very carefully, attend as a silent observer, do lots of eavesdropping. Eavesdropping means listen to others, what they are talking. कान खड़े करके आप सुनते रहिए लोग क्या क्या कह रहे हैं, because you will realize that there are some very interesting experts who are available. Make friends with them because they will be of use to you. So being a silent observer in every seminar in the before phase is extremely important. Now it was qualitative. I wanted to talk about this in the next session, but I think I will talk about this because I think we have some more time. What is quantitative and what is qualitative? Briefly, I'll mention here. Okay. Quantitative research demands excellent mathematical, statistical, experimental, and analytical skills, and access to laboratory equipment, technology, tools. If you don't have access to laboratory testing facilities, equipment, etc., forget about doing quantitative research, because this is what is important for quantitative research. You must have very good mathematical and statistical skill and experimental and analytical skills. If you don't have this, don't even think of doing quantitative research because you will be lost, or you have to develop these skills mathematically, and it is not easy to develop these skills overnight. It has to be part of your nature to be mathematical, statistical, and experimental in approach. Then you can do a quantitative kind of research methodology you can follow. Qualitative demands very sharp mind, very observant, very sharp mind, and widely read personality. You should have read a lot, and you should have a way with words and expression. You should be very good at talking in whatever language you are using, whether it is English, Hindi, or Malayalam, or Kannada. You should be very good at expressing yourself. That's called quality of communication, and complete command over the language that you are using. In addition to this, a good sense of humor, very sharp sense of humor. This is the quality of a person who is doing quality research. A good sense of humor, very sharp mind, capacity to capture the essence of what somebody else is saying without education, but qualitative aspect of somebody's statements. So quantitative research is associated with scientific method, generation of theories and hypotheses. So this is what is quantitative research, is scientific method, generation of models, theories, and this is and development of instruments and methods for measurement, experimental control and manipulation of variables. Now this is all quantitative. Collection of empirical data, modeling and analysis of data. Information which is available from previous research is empirical data, and how to collect them and how to analyze the data. So And through this quantitative research, you arrive at certain findings. So that is quantitative research. Whereas qualitative research, which will involve many research methods, not necessarily just one research method. It is not simply laboratory analysis. It is a lot of research methods are involved in qualitative research, not simply doing experiments in the laboratory and hundreds of experiments you are doing and you are coming out with your research finding. That is not qualitative research. There can be a broad approach with many research methods. So it is a systematic collection, organizing and interpretation of information using textual, images and video. All these things are possible today. In an earlier domain, time it was information, readings and writing, but today images and videos also become very good supplemental information for systematic collection or organization of information. Qualitative information can be deductive and inductive. This chart explains very clearly what can be qualitative research. Qualitative research is inductive approach to generating insight. Inductive approach means you start with observation. You see patterns in your observation, and then you develop a hypothesis tentatively, and then you develop the theoretical model through your research. It's called a bottoms-up approach. The inductive approach is called a bottoms-up approach, whereas deductive approach is a top-down approach. You start with a theory, you develop a hypothesis, you develop observations, and then you do through experiments, you confirm or reject. A lot of experiment is done in quantitative research. But in inductive research, you will notice that there is hardly any experiment is required. It is observation, pattern analysis, preparation of this, theoretically arriving at inductive way. I mean, you are using your intuition and analytical skills, qualitative analytical skills to arrive at a research finding. So that is called qualitative research. Best example is Einstein. The statement of Einstein is very provocative and very thought-provoking. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. In architectural research, so last few slides in which I will just talk about architectural research, which is a domain with which we will discuss in the coming sessions also. Architectural research can be actually put under social science in many ways, because though architecture is built from, ultimately you don't have a standalone architecture which is not used by people. You can't call it an architecture at all if it is not used by people. So when you say used by people, when you say people, it is directly related to the society and the cultural background of the people who are using architecture. So it is actually architectural research, I believe, and so do many researchers all over the world believe, that it is actually research in social science. So methods may be used to understand the meaning of the conclusion produced by quantitative methods. You may do quantitative research in architecture, but the final findings can be established only through qualitative methods. Whether it is useful to the society, how do you say it is useful to the society? Through qualitative analysis of application of whatever findings that you have had by doing quantitative research. So in architectural research, can have multiple dimensions. It can be qualitative, it can be quantitative. But ultimately, the usefulness has to be established by seeing how the society uses it, whether it is of any use to the society. So that is architectural research. Using quantitative method, it is possible to give precise and tested experiment to qualitative ideas. You have a qualitative idea, but you can use quantitative methods to test the qualitative idea. This combination of qualitative and quantitative data gathering is called mixed method of research. In architecture, it is definitely possible to do a lot of mixed method of using both qualitative and quantitative data gathering. I will leave this chart with you. I will share this chart with you, which will lead to a lot of thought processes to understand qualitative, quantitative. We may take a long lecture for just to explain this chart itself, this small chart. I will share this chart later with you. So I will once again leave one more thought. I'm going back to the first question which I told you, first reference which I gave you, say ask questions, 10 questions. So Jiddu Krishnamurti, the great philosopher, has said this: to ask the right question is far more important than to receive the answer. The solution of a problem lies in the understanding of the problem. The answer is not outside the problem, it is in the problem itself. The answer is important for a researcher is to be able to ask the right kind of questions. So this is how I started with ask questions. So a student asks questions to others, a researcher asks questions to self. So this is why I said right in the beginning, ask 10 questions to yourself, then you are a researcher. Don't ask me any question. Don't ask others any question. Ask yourself the question. If you have to ask questions to others, the researcher has to ask questions to self. So based on this, I am going to ask you to do 10 qualitative questions and 10 quantitative questions related to understanding you have of your own built environment in which you want to do research. And let's come back to face-to-face discussion. So in the beginning, I asked you to ask yourself 10 questions, general questions. Now you can divide them into 10 quantitative and 10 qualitative, not necessarily pure quantitative, pure qualitative. You can ask yourself quantitative questions, qualitative questions related to the domain in which you want to do research. I'm told that you have already had many sessions like this on research methodologies. I'm sure some of you may be a little ahead. I was assuming that all of you are very raw beginners. So my presentation was meant for beginners actually, not necessarily people who are already into research. So, but then at the same time, it is important to ask questions. So I would love to see questions that you are asking yourself, quantitative or qualitative or both. 10 questions each or only 10 questions, mixed questions. But please write those questions in your research journal, which you have started today. Please don't mix it up with other research journals that you have for already those who are doing research. But if you have started a diary today, from the beginning of my presentation to the end of my presentations, whatever notes that you have made, I would like to see that from each of you before we meet next, which will be on research writing. The next session will be on research writing. So whatever you share with me from your side will become a very good tip for me to talk about on what is research writing. Because when I look at your questions, I will have a lot of answers to give you on what is research writing. And I will be able to address specifically to some of your questions on how to do research writing related to those questions. You understand that? So I don't want to give you a lot of writing tips, general writing tips. I will give you specific writing tips related to the questions that you are asking, which will be of more useful to you. So that is why we have this gap between presentation. Today I have a presentation. Next presentation will be after 15 days. So if you quickly share whatever you have written down today and share your questions with me, I will be able to prepare better for the writing sessions which we will have 15 days from now, which will be more useful to you. Otherwise, I will just talk generally, which may not be of much use to you. Anything else that you want to discuss? We still have about 10 minutes, I suppose. Yeah.
So you want us to mail those, whatever assignments they are?
Yes. What you can do is maybe I have requested Mukta Madam to create a WhatsApp group of all those who are here.
Okay, so we are doing that.
So if you are doing that, all you can do is make a PDF document out of each of you individually with your name in it, of whatever notes that you have made, whatever questions you are asking. So each will have one PDF document. Upload, each of you individually can upload those PDF documents. I will download them and look at them individually. I will also know the individual's interest field also if you do that. Instead of combining all of them together, keep it independent. Let the responsibility be of each individual to upload that in that group. So there is no need of collecting everything and sending it to me by email. That WhatsApp group will be sufficient, in which each individual will upload their own document. So I will be able to look at all of them. We have enough time. We have enough time, 2 weeks time. So if you do it today itself, I have 2 weeks to look at each and every one. 20 of you are there. So enough time is there to look at each and maybe prepare. My next presentation will be based on preparation of what questions you are asking. How to write. You understand that? It will not be general. It will become very specific for each of you in some way or the other, provided you have asked a lot of questions.
Okay, sir. Okay. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth, I thank you, sir, for conducting this session. It was interesting. I think even we complete the first point that you have to learn the self-management wala thing. That is also more important than rest of the books. वो भी हम सीख जाते तो बहुत है. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.